Welcome to Elevate Uplift's Community Dialogue Series, centering healing advocacy and services. The Elevate Uplift project seeks to deepen and broaden the lessons learned from the National Sexual Assault Demonstration Initiative project and engage with organizations to change practices and expand their understanding of healing. Elevate Uplift offers opportunities to help survivor-serving agencies, state, territorial, tribal coalitions, and funding administrators to think critically about how they do their work and to make the changes necessary to provide comprehensive and sustainable support for survivors. That includes establishing practices and services rooted in anti-racism and anti-oppression frameworks, learning strategies for building empowering leadership, creating intentional organizational identity, engaging in impactful community organizing and movement building, and expanding knowledge of sexual violence and healing.
Hello, everyone. I am Jenny, co-founder of AAPI Women Lead, and I'm honored to be part of today's event, Solidarity is Healing. Thank you to Elevate Uplift Circle of Wisdom for all of your work and for allowing us to be here with you all. AAPI Women Lead is a survivor-centered organization working to end violence against self-identified AAPI women and girls while lifting up the incredible leadership of progressive and radical women and girls. We do this work in solidarity with Black and Indigenous and other communities of color. Our work is to end violence against all AAPI women and girls. This includes systemic, institutional, and interpersonal violence. We've been spending the last 2.5 years researching, talking to survivors and communities across the nation to understand what's happening in and to the AAPI diaspora. In the last 2 years, we've also focused on reclaiming AAPI traditional forms of healing as part of our work. So for today's event, we will bring on Dr. Connie Won, who will share more about solidarity and healing, Adelina Tanchioko and Dr. Roderick Penalosa, who will guide us through healing practices. And at the end of the event, if time allows, we will have a 10-minute Q&A session where you can ask questions to the people on today's panel. Today's event is going to be about 60 minutes. Each session is about 20 minutes. And we'll also have a 2-minute break in between the healing practices. So with that said, we're going to get this started. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. Connie Won, whose work is a reflection of her lifelong commitment to ending racial and gender-based violence. Her areas of expertise include community-driven research, violence against women and girls of color, school discipline, and punishment. Dr. Won is the Director of Transformative Research, a research program evaluation and training institute that works in partnership with community-based organizations to end racial and gender disparities. She's also one of the co-founders of AAPI Women Lead. Dr. Won, can you join us?
Hi, everyone. It's so exciting to be here. Thanks for that introduction, Jenny. Thank you to the rest of the team. I'm excited to hear Adelina and Dr. Rod kind of lead everyone in a number of amazing healing exercises.
Thank you for helping put this together, and thanks for being here. So there's a couple of questions that are going to guide our conversation today. And it's one that a lot of people ask our organization and are really curious about. So I'm excited that you can talk more about this. So the first question is, why is it important for people to think about this as part of the future of building solidarity and ending violence? This being healing, reclaiming forms of healing, and so on.
Okay, so just really quickly, I forgot my manners, and I just wanted to thank the attendees for joining us in the middle of a pandemic. So I'm really glad that you all are with us. I hope that what we provide you all today will be helpful. And thank you to everyone for putting this event on. Okay, to go back, I want to share a couple of things around the healing strategies for AAPI Women Lead. A couple of things that we do is we are really big on helping our communities to take inventory and to name the forms of violence that our communities have experienced. So Asian and Pacific Islanders, for instance, have been survivors of colonial wars, colonialism, imperialism. We're survivors of racism, of, many of us of homophobia, transphobia, and these are structures of violence that have impacted our daily lives. And AAPI Women Lead names these structures as violence, and that we want our communities to identify with that and name that. Don't try to like separate ourselves. Own your story of being immigrants. Own your stories of being climate refugees. Own those stories as a part of survival and as a part of healing. And then we're also very clear that our community is, while we're understudied, under-researched, and a lot of the times we're kind of invisibilized in terms of the direct forms of violence that we experience, whether that be the anti-Asian violence that's happening now, or, some of the racism that happens on the day-to-day, or the sexual violence and domestic violence that is very common in our communities. We have not claimed those stories. We tend to, as a part of survival, disassociate. And so our organization brings us back and asks us to really own those stories and own those experiences, right? And the thing around owning this is a part of healing. Too often we kind of disassociate. Too often we say, oh, that's happening over there. Too often, we're saying that happens in that neighborhood, or we should just get over it. AAPI Women Lead is big on saying, no, own your story, own all of the violence. And when we own the violence, we tell our stories, and then we can destigmatize kind of our survivor stories. And at the same time, we make it, we denormalize it too. Does that make sense? It's so normal for us to be survivors that we don't even know that we're survivors, right? So AAPI Women Lead collects our stories, we tell our stories. And then in doing that, we do this other thing where we reclaim our community's traditional healing practices, as well as combine them with newer forms, right? So that's why Adelina is with us, Dr. Rod is with us. We reclaim acupuncture as ours. We reclaim, from our South Asian communities, yoga as ours. We reclaim herbal medicine as ours. We reclaim all of these practices that Western society has appropriated and say, actually, that's ours. So after we claim our stories, we claim our healing, and we claim those forms of healing as our power, right? So that's kind of at the nexus of all the work that we do. We do it intergenerationally. And then, the other thing around solidarity, right? Your question is like, how does this help with solidarity? Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. So, the thing is that so often when people disassociate from their own trauma or their own violence, the best way to do that is you deflect, right? You deny it and you deflect. And you're just like, oh, that happened over there. Oh, it happens over someplace else. That doesn't happen to us. To me, solidarity means that you actually have to like own your story so that you can see where your relationship to another person kind of meets or contradicts each other, right? So for instance, I know my story, you know your story. If we own it, then me and you can have a conversation, right? Mm-hmm. So I think the point is, again, to, essentially own our stories so that we can actually relate to other people and be in solidarity with them. Okay.
I also think it's important to highlight that when you own your stories and you come to a point where you want to share, then you can also create a new normal. To your point, when you're saying like it happens so often that we don't even recognize that we're survivors. Mm-hmm. And I think it takes a collective effort to live a different way and to imagine a different way of living. Mm-hmm. So that way we don't just accept harm and then also take accountability for the harm within our communities, whether you're the harm doer or the one being harmed.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think there's a power in that. And I also think it also helps build solidarity if we can recognize that in other communities of color, the harm that happens within Black and Indigenous communities as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate you bringing that all up.
Mm-hmm. I think that's beautiful too, Jen, because what you're helping us to remember is, our work is all about mutual aid and transformative justice. And when we say mutual aid, we mean taking care of our communities, right? When you're taking care of your communities in the form of mutual aid, that means sharing food or, providing resources to other people. We wouldn't know what our resources and our strengths are if we don't take into account who we are. So I appreciate you saying that. And then we also are about transformative justice. Many of us don't rely on the police or the criminal justice system to help our communities, right? Because they have historically done a lot of harm. And I think you're reminding me that when we own our stories and our histories of violence, we are able to remember, the impact that capitalism has had on us. We remember impact that colonization has had on us, that anti-Blackness has had on us, right? So then we can actually be able to transform the world accordingly.
I think that segues perfectly into our second question, which is what are other strategies and measures we can start learning about and implementing? So we see healing as one, reclaiming these forms of healing as another. What are different things that API Women Lead and other organizations that we learn from are doing and have been doing?
Number one, I just want folks to know that this is the first time that the co-founders have interviewed each other or talked with each other about the work that we do. So that's kind of exciting. Just a heads up. And though I think what we've learned from, Nappy Sav. Nappy Sav, Mira's in the house. Thank you for that. So we've learned from Nappy Sav around, serving our communities and meeting our communities, multiple needs. I see Mira and Nina, the co-founders and the directors of Nappy Sav, go out into the world and really serve our communities, right? And they do it without they're not pretentious. They don't need anybody to know what they're doing, but their work has impacted, thousands upon thousands of people. But you wouldn't even know that because this is about the people. Right. So there's that. I've learned about kind of being in service of the people in that way. I also know that we've learned a lot from people like Mia Mingus, who does work on transformative justice. And by transformative justice, we think about, Jenny, you've been studying transformative justice a lot too. So feel free to chime in. But when transformative justice is about transforming systems of oppression, right? Like upending them in order to address the individual forms of harm, right? Like we don't just say somebody's caused harm and we just throw them away. We recognize that the harm was caused in part because of the systems of violence. Right. And then we bring people in and begin to kind of just heal together.
Yeah. I think that really leads into this bigger conversation around like defunding the police and abolition. Because a lot of people are afraid of those terms or don't understand. But for me, learning about transformative justice in relationship to abolition has been about one, just as Mia Mingus says, like stopping the harm before it escalates to the point where you have to rely on the police. Right. So abolition is so important at this moment and beyond because it's about stopping the harm. How do we address the harm before it escalates to a point where it's out of our hands us being our communities.
Mhm.
And I think I'm happy to see API Women Lead and other organizations, and I'm hoping other organizations on this call are doing the same, is looking at the conditions that cause harm and how do we address that to prevent it. So I think, I asked this question, and I guess I'm realizing that my own answer is that some of the strategies that a lot of organizations that traditionally have not thought about is harm reduction, and not relying on the carceral state that has harmed a lot of survivors. Right. So how do we prevent the DV? How do we prevent conflict, just period? Or not even prevent, but how do we resolve them and heal from them so we can continue building?
I think those are great points. I think, when folks learn from Adelina and Dr. Rod later on, I can honestly say that the work that they've done has helped me to be a better person. I do this work on anti-violence stuff, do abolitionist work, but I'm also a really angry person. And I've also learned, I don't know if you needed to second that, Jen, but I feel like, I'm also a survivor, and not having unpacked all of that stuff, I know that I caused harm, right? Because I didn't do my own unpacking, and I also didn't do enough healing. So from that harm, right? And so our healers, our practitioners who are joining us today, and even you, by the way, I'm going to share a quick story first, but let me just say that our healers are very instrumental in helping us to both reduce harm, but also to account for harm, and then before we move on, and I know you're going to introduce them or have another question, but I think one of the important things is that there's, I'm a survivor of different forms of violence, and Jenny, who's the co-founder of our organization, has also, done a lot of restorative practices to help me in my own healing. Right. So when someone was causing me harm and I wasn't going to call in anybody to hurt them, I called in Jenny to be like, Jenny, can you have a conversation with this person? Can you speak on my behalf for me? Right. And in that conversation, that person learned about the harm that they caused. And they actually, they understood the harm from the conversation that Jenny had with them. And they've come back to me and repeatedly apologized, to take accountability for the harm they've done, right? It doesn't reverse the impacts, but it has definitely given me the power of forgiveness. Right. Like I can now forgive you because you understand what happened. Right. And that aids in my healing as well. So I just wanted to give people a concrete example of the ways we get to support each other through these restorative and transformative practices.
Right. And we're going to transition to Adelina in 1 minute. And I think what I want to say to Connie's story is that, it was the harm was caused to her, but kind of like I had experienced secondary harm. I don't know if that's the right term, but me, in the name of transformative justice and not throwing away people, hearing their story, I was able to forgive them as well, and also contextualize where they're coming from and why they also caused harm. So it humanizes. We can humanize harm still. That doesn't mean we can respond however we need to respond, but we can also, if we want, take the transformative justice approach and learn how to humanize and understand people in that way as well. So I appreciate you telling that story. I know you don't tell a lot of people that story. With that being said, would you like to close out with any other answers to the questions 1 and 2? Anything else to add?
No, I think I just share my gratitude for you, for being a part of my healing process for a very long time. And then, and my accountability, because my sister is also a martial artist. And so she can really kick people's butts, to be honest. She just doesn't have to. And I want to thank Adelina, and I want to thank, Dr. Rod for joining us and being a part of our work for as long as you all have been, personally and then kind of organizationally. And I definitely want to thank Mira and Nina, who are both founders of Nappy Sav, because you all have paved the way for so many of us and you hold space for us consistently. So I wanted to say community is really important. And I just want to thank people around that.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Connie Wan. So our next featured speaker and healer is Adelina Tanchiocco. Adelina is the founder and executive director of Surrendered Healing, where she specializes in supporting women of color in owning their power. She is trained as a therapist, restorative justice practitioner, coach, and intuitive healer. Fun fact about Adelina, Adelina loves nature so much that once in high school, she dressed up as Mother Nature for Halloween. And to this day, her family still teases her for it. So thank you so much for being here with us, Adelina. Take it away.
Jenny, thank you, Jenny. And it is true. They every year, not just, well, definitely on Halloween, but even when it's not Halloween, they definitely give me a lot of grief around that outfit. However, I think it was the best one I've ever had. So wanted to just share a little bit more about myself as we ground in and shift over to doing some healing practices. Also just want to say, wow, like so much every time I hear Dr. Connie and Jenny speak about the work that they're doing, I'm always just so blown away and moved and honored to be a part of it. So I will be saving this transcript because there's so many gold nuggets in all of that. All right. So here's it's a story I actually haven't shared publicly, much more on a one-to-one basis. But when I heard about this workshop and I was asked to speak, I thought it was really important to just be fully authentic and transparent. All right. So and I wrote about it. I'm going to be transparent on that too. I'm going to read it because it's hard for me to just verbally talk about it without reading. All right. So squished behind the barrier that blocked the police from those arrested. At 5 years old, I sat in the back of a cop car between my 4 sisters as we waited to learn whether our mom was still breathing or had been killed by my dad. Thankfully, it was the former. Unfortunately, however, that would not be the last time that violence enveloped my childhood household. I knew from a young age that the world was nowhere close to perfect, and I made a commitment to do everything I could to better it. And so this led me on a path to get my master's in social work and become certified as a coach. But what I found to be the most healing for me is to connect with an intuitive gift that's been passed down in my family. And I just want to pause there because I think it's important to talk about, and especially with the contextualization from Jenny and Dr. Connie, that it's a gift that's been passed down in my family, but it has not been passed down with love. They were so scared of this gift. There was so much fear around this gift. And now, after having studied it and learned a lot more, one from my ancestors, who came before the diaspora, right? I'm very aware that the fear around this gift is very much a result of colonization. It's very much a result of oppression. And so by simply even me just telling you all that I have this intuitive gift, that in it of itself is healing. And I share that because I know that each of you have gifts. All of us have gifts. And yes, there's something healing that happens when we reclaim our stories, something healing that happens when we reclaim our specific stories around violence if you have experienced violence. But there's also something healing that comes when you really embrace every single part of you, including the gifts that society may deem as crazy. To this day, my mom still gets really nervous that I tell people that I have this gift, and in fear that that someone will lock me up in the crazy houses. These are her words. I know that's not PC, right? So today, I'm going to be supporting you in connecting with your own intuition, with your own gifts, And by the end, you'll have a meditation practice that you could use anytime to connect back to your higher knowing. I don't believe that I know everything. In fact, I really believe I really know close to nothing. But what I do know is that you know what you need. What I do know is that you know the next step. You know what you need to let go of. You have this inner knowing. And so that's what I'll be walking you through today. All right. And as a result, you'll be able to take in so many more blessings when we get out of our own way. And that's really the work, right? We get out of our own way so we can let our higher selves speak to us. So much goodness comes through, all the goodness that the universe, spirit, God, your higher self, your ancestors, all of that are sending you constantly. I'm a true believer that goodness is always coming our way, but we have a lot of trauma, really, that often gets in the way of being able to fully receive it, not because of anything. There's no judgment there. It's, generation after generation of trauma can put spiritually could put a energetic block in the way. And so when we move ourselves out of the way, we also move the suffering that comes with our human body, so that we can receive the gifts of the spirit, the gifts of our own spirit, of our own calling, and of our own purpose. All right. So with that, before we get started, I'd actually love for you to go ahead and take a moment, if you don't mind, to grab a glass of water. We're going to be doing some work with water. Water, we thankfully, all of us, as far as I know, have access to water. And so this is something that you can do anytime, anywhere, in any moment. All right, so go ahead and grab a glass of water. I'll just pause for a minute or two here as you do that. My keyboard too. And if you don't mind, just so I don't move on unless you're ready, can folks let me know just in the chat, I got my water, got it? Just quickly type that you got it. Awesome, Mira got her water. Mia, awesome. Maybe I'll wait for
I'm on the phone, but I got my water. Thank you.
Okay, you're gonna go grab your water. Okay. Awesome. All right, while folks are settling back in after getting their water, I'm going to be pulling up a recording that I recorded last night as I was meditating and praying on how to best serve you all. I'm a believer that there's only divine timing happening. And so it is perfect, right, and divine timing that you're here right now. There's so many other things that you could be doing right now, and yet you chose to be in this space, right? And so without knowing you personally, Spirit knows you. And so I prayed on, how can I best serve? What is it that I can say or do in just a short amount of time to make sure that I come from my highest place, and that you all leave with something, even if it's one word or one something that to feel elevated and inspired through our interaction, right? And what came was a chant. And I'm surprised, I will say, because to be honest with you all, I've never had a chant come through. So it's a huge honor for a chant to come through. And it also more than an honor for myself, what it is evidence of the work that you all have already been doing. I know that a chant is a high level spiritual, it's a high level spiritual energy. I don't know, what do you call that? Like download. And so in order for me to download something like that, it's less about me and it's much more about those that I'm serving. And so what that means to me when I received that chant was that you all have done a lot of work, right? You've done a lot of work to clear the way. You've done a lot of forgiveness work. You've done a lot of healing work on your own or in community prior to this call. And so Spirit is like, you can go there, Adelina. You can go there with them. All right. So go ahead and put the water to the side. We're going to work with that in a little bit, but I just wanted you to have that ready. And I'm I'm going to invite us to just ground, and in the midst of the grounding, I'm going to be playing the chat. The chant came through in the moment, so it's not something I memorized, and it's not something that will probably ever come back to me. So I'm grateful to have had my phone next to me and I could record the chant in that moment. All right. So with that, let's just go ahead and start by taking a few deep breaths. And you can close your eyes, or you could take a look down, finding a spot to just zone out to. So taking a few deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. So take a deep breath in and out. And in and out. And in and out. Taking a moment to just scan your body. Taking note of anything that is calling you to pay attention. Maybe there's a part, our body knows so much, so much. And so is there any part of your body that just needs some extra love? Maybe that can come through sometimes in temperature. So part of your body could feel warm or could feel cold, or it could come through in a pain, or it could come through as just a knowing, like, oh, I feel like my ankle is talking to me, right? So you want to place your hands on that area, placing your right hand on your body and your left hand on top. Your right hand is your healing hand. So you want that to be the one on your body. Feeling into that space, and just ask that area of your body what message it has for you today. Oh, yeah. There's some sadness in the room, and that's okay. Just be with it. There's no judgment. So now just rubbing your hands together. They're Reiki hands, but they're also, more people will know them as Reiki hands, but they're also Hilot hands, which is a traditional Filipino healing method. So you want to rub your hands together. The idea is that we have healing in our hands, right? A little bit faster. Feel that energy. Feel it get hotter and hotter. Nice. And now place your hands right back to that same area. We have healing inside of us. We have healing inside of our communities. We have all that we need. We're fully resourced. So sending love right back to yourself. Feeling into that space. Feeling the energy shift. And just listening to this short chant and allowing whatever resonates to resonate or not. Taking another deep breath in, inviting in a smile. Slowly opening your eyes when you're ready, but staying in this same energetic state. And now I invite you to go ahead and bring your cup of water closer to you. And if you feel called, totally no pressure, but if you feel called, feel free to turn your videos on. There is something that happens when you just know that you're doing something in community. So that's an option, but no pressure. All right, nice. Okay. So just holding your cup. Actually, I'm going to place mine up. Go ahead and hold your cup off of the table. And you're just going to really connect to the gratitude, first and foremost, for this water. Starting with feeling gratitude for having access to clean water. Gratitude. I mean, so much comes with access, right? So gratitude for the financial ability, gratitude for the infrastructure, gratitude for the home that you live in. And now gratitude to the water itself, knowing that it's ageless, right? It's immortal. This water in your cup has been here since the beginning of time. So imagining its journey to get into your hands. And here's the beautiful thing. Not only can you imagine, you can actually know. So go ahead and once again, either close your eyes or zone out looking down and ask the cup of water to show you its journey, whether it recently came through from the rain, or if it came through and through a lake, or if it came, there's so many different sources of how we're getting our water, and there's different parts of our water's story. Which part of its story does it want to show you? Some of you are questioning if you're making it up. The answer is no. If you're seeing something, if you're visioning it, that's the answer. And if for those of you who aren't quite seeing it, because sometimes it's a new practice, that's okay. Just trust that there is a story, and that when you drink this water in a moment, that your body will connect with the story of the water. Right, so now go ahead and take a small sip slowly. In your own words, saying aloud, so I won't speak so that you could hear yourself speak. In your own words, saying aloud a gratitude to the water that you just drank, a gratitude for the nourishment, for the love, for the light in which it filled you with. And so now take a couple more sips on your own, continuing to stay in this state of gratitude, continuing to stay in this state of awareness and connection to the water. Beautiful. Would love to just take a moment. Jenny, how much time do I have? 2 minutes, 1 minute? I'm okay on time? Would love to just hear from folks, whether if you want to put it in the chat or maybe just popcorn, any message or anything that was surprising that came through for something as simple that we often see as simple. And I know for myself, I often take for granted from the water. That wasn't a rhetorical question. It's a real question. Does anyone have any thoughts that they want to share? And I think this is a nice intimate space and definitely a safe space. And something to think about.
Guadalupe.
Oh yes.
I think, well, I'm actually walking, so I couldn't get a glass of water, but I was imagining all the water that's in my body and what it took for my father's water, my mother's water to meet in order to create me. That was my.
Thank you for sharing that, Guadalupe. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for asking.
I see some chats in here. I saw running water in a river, then saw my mom when I sipped it. Oh, yeah.
I felt the wisdom of the water in its journey, where it came from, and all the experience as it flowed from place to place and made its way into my cup, and had such reverence for that and gratitude.
I felt that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
This is Rebecca. And hello, good day, everyone. I envisioned the purification process. And it was very metallic and cold. I don't know why I envisioned that, but then I thought about what we're going through, surviving and purifying ourselves through the big year of 2020 and all that happens in our lives. So that purification envisioning really made sense.
Love that.
So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I love how it was just, we all did the same exercise, right? And yet there was a different message, a different vision, a different resonance for each of us. Right? And so I'll read a couple more here and then we'll come to a close. Taylor said, thank you so much for sharing your experience and healing gifts. Yeah, no, thank you. I never paused to think the water that nourishes me. It made me think about how the water is me and I am the water. We are one. 100%. 100%. We're one. And one with the water and one with everywhere that the water came from. Right? And Rebecca says, water my mama's tears. Yes. All right. So before we close, just want to share in meditating on how I can best serve you all. And what else came through is to offer a meditation package created by 6 women of color, including myself, around COVID-19 and how to heal through it. And so that's just a free gift, and I'll put that in the chat. Just some extra love. I think the world could use some extra love. All right. So as we come to close, I want to invite you to really step into your I am. Right? There's something powerful about speaking into your I am. Your I am is not, I am tired. It's something to note too. You don't want to talk about like what you don't want to be, even if you're feeling it. You might be feeling, I'm feeling tired, but I am. Who are you at your highest self, your core being? Right? I'm a child of the universe. I am love. I am water. I am connected. Okay. So whatever that is for you, I'm going to invite you to speak that aloud. And then if you're willing to go ahead and type that in the chat just so that other people can feel it too. But we're just going to speak it aloud so that your body resonates with it. There's something that happens when your body fully feels into your truth. All right. I am blank. I'm waiting for one more person who didn't say it out loud. I can't hear you, but spirit can. There you go. Thank you. All right. Thank you all so much for having me. It's always, always, always an honor to serve such amazing souls as yourself, which, like I said, Spirit told me that you all are amazing souls. So thank you.
Thank you, Adelina, for that amazing exercise. Yeah, that was a trip. Like I looked down at my cup and I saw running water, and Adelina at that moment said I wasn't crazy. So thank you for that.
Dr. Roderick Penalosa. Dr. Roderick Penalosa is a licensed psychotherapist. He has been a mental health provider for 13 years in community mental health and nonprofit organizations, and has a strong passion in supporting and advocating for people of color, LGBTQ communities, the underserved and marginalized. He is a mindfulness and compassion teacher who anchors his clinical practice in the integration of the mind, body, and spirit approach to wellness and well-being. Welcome, Dr. Rod.
Thank you. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Connie Woon, for that profound dialogue that you had with Jenny about owning our stories. And I am a catalyst to healing, and I am who I am because I have learned to own my pain, my suffering, and rise above all those experiences. Thank you also to Babayalan Adelina, and Babayalan is a Filipino term that translates to healer. So I want to talk about the process of owning our stories to connect to what Dr. Woon and Jenny spoke about. Stress is the psychological and physical response to any sudden and oftentimes aggressive disruption to our sense of normalcy, right? And it affects our sense of safety and even sometimes takes away our experiences with equanimity. And the impact of stress on our mental, physical, and emotional body, if not addressed immediately and effectively, can really spiral to all sorts of medical and mental health issues for us, like gastrointestinal problems, aches, pains, hypertension, depression, anxiety, only to name a few. When we are stressed, our immediate response is either to dismiss our thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations because they are uncomfortable, right? They're inconvenient and unwanted experiences, and they can inflict suffering on us on so many levels. Suffering like that affect our emotional quality of life, or psychologically, how we relate to others, and most importantly, the impact of stress on our sense of selves. We sometimes even ask the question to ourselves, what is the point of living if we have to live with this kind of suffering every day? But our body's response to stress is really just an indication to pay attention to something, an urgent warning signal from the brain to the body that something needs critical and immediate care. Pain, for instance, pain is an example of how our body can somaticize our mental and emotional stresses, right? The nervous system of our human body is made up of several billions, if not trillions, of nerves. So pain is a sensation that we will continue to encounter throughout our lives. And for some of us, chronic condition is really the parts of ourselves that's screaming, pay attention to me. I need you to take better good care of me. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. So the question for us that I invite all of you to think about and to reflect on is, how does stress look and feel like? What this means is, how much of ourselves, our thoughts, emotions, and perhaps even our self-esteem are affected by our sense of suffering, our experiences of suffering. The more emotional and physical distress we feel, the more suffering it seems that we experience. However, sometimes the suffering becomes the limited view of the quality of our life. We can become so engulfed by the discomfort that it becomes very difficult to shift our attention into anything else. And the assumption for many of us is, and I just want you to really slow down and try to digest this. If the suffering is happening to me, inside of me, then the relief and the remedy of this will come from somebody else, from external resources. Because how can pain and comfort, suffering and peace originate from the same source within myself, right? That is usually the ego, our human mind's way of rationalizing suffering and comfort and relief. We also live in a culture and society with a strong sense of entitlement, and we want immediate resolution that doesn't require a lot of work or effort, right? Our autopilot response to pain is to medicate. And for some of us, self medicating to alleviate the suffering and to induce feelings of relief and comfort, which in some cases are temporary and unsustainable anyway, can put us in harm's way. So I'm going to introduce briefly the practice of mindfulness in working with stress, to acknowledge it, because the more we resist the triggered thoughts and emotions, the more expansive the suffering becomes. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, endured years of pain and suffering in the Nazi concentration camp. He attributed his survival to finding meaning in the midst of his pain, and he discovered that suffering without meaning actually leads to despair. So the mindfulness practice of RAIN, which is what we're going to do in a couple of minutes, helps us in recognizing, allowing, and investigating what is presenting itself or what is emerging within us as a result of stress and external triggers. RAIN is an acronym that stands for recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture in compassion. Having the capacity to sit and be with what may feel uncomfortable, then perhaps we can unpack the meaning and value of the experience that is wrapped up in the pain and suffering. We have a different, or maybe even a profound moment of nurturing and natural awareness. We can have a different, or maybe gain a profound meaning of natural awareness. This can give us a sense of control of something that would normally be physically and emotionally immobilizing or dysregulating on us. So as we prepare ourselves now to get into the experiential part of this portion, I invite you to find a comfortable way of sitting and just spend a few moments feeling the weight of your body on the chair, on the floor, the bed, or whatever you are sitting on. And feel your feet planted firmly on the ground. If it feels natural for you to, let your eyes close gently. Otherwise, you may just soften your gaze or look down. And please feel free to stop at any given moment of this exercise if you feel uncomfortable. You may open your eyes, get up, and have a drink of water or take a slow, deep breaths. Take care of yourself and what you need to do along the way at your discretion. So let's begin by taking a few full breaths and just gently and slowly bringing our awareness to the inflow and outflow of the breath, in and out of our body. Inhaling deeply, feeling the chest and lungs, and the slow out breath, relaxing and releasing. as you continue to just be aware of the breath as it comes in and out of your body, remind yourself that you are safe, you're not in harm's way, and just give yourself the permission to relax and feel at ease at this time. I now invite you to scan your life briefly for a particular situation where you feel stress is being triggered. I wouldn't pick a situation that is too heavy or overwhelming or emotionally dysregulating. Just choose something that you know you're able to sit and be with at this time. Whatever that may be, that is trying to reach out to you to get your attention. Allow yourselves to be open to that process. And you, being the observer, bring this situation to mind and just allow the story to unfold. Put this scenario on pause and begin to recognize the R in rain, what is happening. Recognizing simply means being conscious about acknowledging what is present. What are the thoughts and feelings that are coming up? What do you recognize as predominantly emerging given this situation? It could be a critical inner voice or particular feelings and sensations in the body that evokes some discomfort. You might even mentally just whisper to yourself what you're most aware of right now. Then just allow this experience to continue to unfold. The A in rain is to allow whatever is happening at this time to take place. Whatever this is, it seems to need your attention at this time. Just allow it. Allowing means letting the thoughts, emotions, sensations that we have recognized to just simply be there. We allow by simply pausing with the intention to relax our resistance and let the experience be just as it is. Allowing our thoughts, emotions, or bodily sensations simply to be doesn't mean we agree with our conviction or with what's happening. Rather, we are honestly just acknowledging the presence of whatever is taking place without judgment, without criticism, in this deeply sacred space within yourself. And breathe. Go back to the breath. And we now move to investigating the I in rain. And we begin to have a sense of, when I'm feeling this way, where do I feel it in my body? Where do I feel it in my body? Getting in touch with this inner experience, feel the place in your body where you most feel the sense of the triggered feelings. Allow your body to have a dialogue with you and investigate these subtle feelings and sensations and how they are affecting you now, which could very well bring awareness and insights, maybe even answers about yourself, about your patterns and maybe habits that continue to repeat themselves. Just go right into the part of you that feels most vulnerable as you get in touch with whatever you are experiencing at this time. And ask yourself, what do you need from me? What do you need from me? How do you want me to deal with you? How do you want me to deal with you? And what is the most reassuring and healing for you right now? What is the most reassuring and healing for you right now? And as we move into nurture, the N in rain, nurturing and compassion, listen to your true self and wise heart to what is needed and how these parts of you would like you to respond. Rest your hands. I invite you to rest your hands on your heart space and notice your own presence of self and compassion for yourself. You might want to whisper affirmations and words of loving kindness to yourself. And just rest in that space for a moment. I hear you. I see you. You matter so much to me. And I love you with all my heart. And as we close this journey into our heart, into ourselves, silently, I invite you to silently repeat these words to yourself. May I accept myself just as I am. May I accept myself just as I am. May I be kind and gentle with myself when I am suffering. May I be kind and gentle with myself when I am suffering. May I trust that I am doing the best that I can in each moment. May I trust that I am doing the best that I can in each moment. And may I incline my heart and mind towards understanding rather than criticism towards myself. May I incline my heart and mind towards understanding rather than criticism towards myself. Take a couple of deep, full breaths in and out. And when you are ready, I invite you to slowly and gently come back and open your eyes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Roderick Penalosa, for
You've been listening and viewing Elevate Uplift's Community Dialogue series. Elevate Uplift is supported by a collective of national organizations and Circle of Wisdom members leading anti-sexual violence work and includes the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition, the National Organization of Asians and Pacific Islanders Ending Sexual Violence, the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, the Resource Sharing Project, and our Circle of Wisdom members who provide us with direction, expertise, connections, and influence. For more information, please visit www.elevateuplift.org.